We are going to go through packet tracer, small office, home office, which is the acronym for that is SOHO. I think I have a little drawing of all the devices. And I do have text that goes through and tells you where to find everything. This might be a typical home. You might have a PC. Most people don't have anything hardwired anymore unless they're like serious gamers. Because there's less latency on a wire than there is in wireless. I mean, really serious gamers. Anyway, this would be like an iPad, your smartphone. I know the smartphones don't have antennas, but that's what Packet Tracer has. You may have a laptop, you may have a printer, you may have a Roku, you may have the list goes on and on and on. You may have a doorbell thing that has a camera. Most of the time, people will have their router and what connects them to the ISP as the same device. And I drew a circle around this because this part is your responsibility. This part is their responsibility, but also it's the dividing line between your local network and the wide area network, which is out here. Oh, I should have done another circle, shouldn't I? But that would have been too many circles. All right, let's put our stuff out there. We need a PC. Automatically, we are on network devices, which is switches, routers, wireless. This is an endpoint device, meaning it's at the end of the line as far as being connected to a network. There is nothing that gets connected beyond a client. So the PCs are right here. So we do need a PC. We do need a laptop. Doesn't matter where you put them. We do need a printer. Yep, there's our printer. And let's see. Yep, smartphone is in here. What else do we have? Oh, tablet, which I don't know. That doesn't really look like any tablet I have. Doesn't look like my smartphone either. In fact, I don't even remember smartphones that had antennas like that. Maybe they stuck the antenna out there just so you know it had wireless connection, maybe, so a visual cue. Now we've got all of our endpoint devices, the things that consume the internet. Now we need some network devices. Well, here are our network devices. Are we good so far? If you're not good, let me know. Network devices. Well, we need an RT300 wireless router. And it says go to wireless devices. And if you go over here, you can see it kind of has a little wire. It looks like a wire signal on it, wireless signal. Click on that. And we have a WRT300M, which is, I think, a Netgear of some sort. That guy goes in the middle because he connects everything. Then, one we haven't been into yet, says find WAN emulation. Oh, here it is. I was thinking it was up here, but it's underneath network devices. There it is. WAN manipulation. We know that means wide area network. So each of these are different ways to connect to a wide area network. Here is what people typically refer to, or when you're drawing the internet, you typically have a little cloud thing because you have no individual things to really designate. You could I picked a cable modem. But typically, these are the same thing now because the ISP can cut costs by just manufacturing a gazillion things that are identical that have everything in one device. But for our purposes, we'll keep them separate. Now you should have all these little people in your network. If you end up with one that's not right, that's what this guy is for. If I accidentally dragged him out and I didn't really need him, I hit this guy and it'll say, are you sure? And yes, I'm sure, but I don't really want to. All right, so now we need to figure out our cables, which is the lightning bolt. Now we have console cable, which we're not ever going to use. We have a copper straight through. That's the one you use most often when you're connecting something by an Ethernet cable, like this room is connected. All of these have Ethernet cables running to ports on the wall. Wires go up and into the back room. So we're going to use this because we don't have a lot of connections. We're going to connect our wireless router. Now notice, just like when we were working with routers, this has an internet port and it has 4 Ethernet ports. If I'm going to connect my computer inside my network, where would I connect it? What's the biggest wide area network in the world? In the solar system, as far as we know. Oh my. Christy, Alan? Well, you let me hang here and you had the answer all along. Goodness. So we're going to connect it to the internet. The internet is the biggest, but the internet's outside. So you're right, internet is the biggest wide area network, which means any of these are part of our local area network. So we connect them up here, and then we go over, oh, there. And that's the only Ethernet connection on our laptop, or I went to the wrong one. There it is, there's my PC, there. Fast Ethernet on my PC. There, we have a wire, we're doing good. That was a lot of work. Now, unfortunately, some of these devices do not come with a wireless card. What? A laptop without a wireless card? Packet tracer is not our friend. So we go into the laptop and look at here. It has an Ethernet card in it. Well, most laptops don't even have that anymore. So if you're going to change out a device on something, a physical device, typically you're going to turn the power off. And that's the power button. Shuts it down. How about that? Is that fun? It won't let you pull this out without turning the power off. So we want to get rid of this guy. And right here, we have a wireless module, which I do have all that in the directions. And we stick that in there. It has kind of a sideways antenna, but that's supposed to be an antenna. Yay, we have it connected now. There we go. Does the printer have a wireless to it? Let's see. Uh-oh, it has an Ethernet. What do we do with this one? Turn it off. Pull out the Ethernet. Pull in the wireless. I haven't seen a home printer in quite some time that actually has an Ethernet cable in it. They're almost always wireless, and it is handy at home because maybe you want your printer downstairs, maybe you want to move it somewhere else, you know, and it takes very little bandwidth, meaning there's not a lot of communication that happens when you are sending something to a printer. There's not a lot going on. There. I wonder if I forgot to turn this guy back on because he's not connecting. Uh-oh. Yep. Have you turned it off and on again? I did turn it off, but I never turned it back on, buddy. Oh, there it is. Now it's on. Well, the smartphone we know is going to be wireless, and we know this guy is going to be wireless. So everybody's happy there. Now from the here, we're going to need to connect our internet to our cable modem. It has one Ethernet port. Look at that port there. What kind of a port do you suppose that is? Christy, you had the last answer. What kind of a port is this? This one is, but what's this one? Does anybody have charter internet? You don't have charter internet, you've probably never seen that. That's like a cable, like a coax cable that TV signal comes in. That's how they bring it into your house if you have, but no, it's not Charter anymore. It's Spectrum. Isn't that what it's, yeah, it's Spectrum. They'll have a cable going up to this device and then that'll connect to everybody else. But in Allo, for example, Allo has fiber. But somewhere in here, we have a coaxial cable, which is what that one is. So if you haven't had Spectrum, you've never seen one. Anyway, this helps show that WAN area connection types are different than what we do in our local network. Well, now we're going to configure our router kind of like we just were messing around with it the other day in real life. Click on your router. Oh, I don't know what it was doing, but it took a while. It has a GUI, graphical user interface. Look at that. What does DHCP do for us? What is DHCP? I know we've had this conversation. We have two ways of assigning IP addresses. You've heard that question before. What was the answer the last time? What was the answer the last time, Christy? Did I repeat the question?
Yeah.
Okay. There's two different ways of assigning IP addresses in the network. Anybody know what they are? Or how they work, or how they behave? One of them's on the screen. Yeah, dynamic is the part to remember out of that. Dynamic. So at home, almost always going to be dynamic. In a business, almost always going to be static. So here, I have an IP address in the back of the room, always the same. Doesn't move. Because if I want to go to my cool web server, I don't want it moving from one day to the next. I don't know how cool it is, but it is usable. Oh, I don't have the right one set up, forwarded here. It's .NET. There. Discord, tic-tac-toe, Minecraft stuff. That's static because I want to know how to get to it. Internally in your house for your laptops and all that stuff, nobody cares. Dynamic is perfectly fine. This is where we set up the network numbers. So right now it's 192.168.0.1 for the default gateway. And if you check yours out at home, the odds are fairly good this might be what you have. The other common one is instead of a 0, you might have a 1. 5 sometimes is used, and then after that, all bets are off. But this is a very common one. Oh, we're not changing it though, although we could. I mean, you can change this to whatever you want. We could just change it to twin. We can change it clear up to 254 if we want, because on this type of network, we have 254 numbers to deal with. So we'll just set it up as 6. This is saying where the start of the dynamic addresses are, and this is how many addresses we can have. 100 through 149. You can have 50 people. I don't think I'm going to have 50 people on my network, so I'm going to change that. There. And we're not going to do anything with that. Save settings will sometimes reboot the router, sometimes it won't. This is a simulation, so nothing actually shows that it's happening, but it does update it. The next thing we're going to look at is the wireless tab. Wireless. Remember we went through this? Should I change my network setting? Oh, here, yeah. So I'm going to change my SSID. Well, just call this oven, because that's where I'm supposed to eat when I go to Lincoln tomorrow. Wireless security. Which one of these is the one we used the other day? I'm pointing at the one we use. WPA2 is the current best standard. WPA through 3, I'm starting to see in some access points. It's starting to show a choice of WPA3. In fact, I think the new wireless adapter I bought for something shows WPA3 in it, that you can use it. WPA2 is our good one for right now. This is what's being used in this room. It's what would be being used at your house. So we need a passphrase. Let's be super secret. The passphrase is what you need to type in to connect. It's also called a shared key. Does anybody think of why that might be called a shared key? Key means that it's something that unlocks a door, right? What does shared mean?
Shared order.
Yeah, with a shared key, I have to give you the key to connect to the access point in the room, which I've given, password 01. If I change it and don't tell you, it's not a shared key. I mean, it is a shared key, but I'm just not going to share it. Right? So that's not really what a shared key is. All right, security. Oh, that's not the right place. Administration. When we were working on the new Netgear wireless the other day, what's one of the things that asked us to change right away? It asked us to change the admin password. That's the password needed to get into the access point and change it. If you leave it at the default, and I have, I don't know, maybe a minute on your computer at your house, I can change that administrator password because I know several of the common passwords that are the default. But if you have a newer router where they made you change it, I have no clue. Anyway, I'm not going to change that. So that means what's going to happen since I changed all that, but I didn't tell anybody. Oh, this is what happens. Everybody gets disconnected. So now what do we do?
Figure each device.
And I'm just going to configure one. But you'd have to make those changes, but that's right. Thank you, Alan. There it is, wireless. Now this is weird. This is like 25 years old. No, it's not that old, but this is just like a weird thing that I've only seen just a few times, like 10 years ago. But it does scan, and there it is. There's my oven. It gives me a chance to connect, and I put in my shared key, pre-shared. And then I connect. And the signal should pop up here any second. Went wrong. Oh, it just didn't show up there, but it connected here. Now the laptop is king of the road because he's connected and PC's connected. You would reconfigure everybody else. So if I change, which I am at some point, maybe this summer. Oh, and I have WPA3 in here, and that should be WPA2. Have WPA somewhere else. Man, who wrote this? Regardless, if you change settings in the network, everybody has to know those settings. You have to have the right settings to connect. I have to share the key. If someone comes to your house and they want to connect to your wireless and you have a shared key, you have to share the key. However, many wireless access points have what's called a guest network that only gives them internet access, but not access to your local network. So that's like our WNCC internet. It's a guest network. It only has access to the internet and nothing else. This has a guest network thing in it too. I just never set it up because the only people that ever use it are people in my classes. Questions? You're confident in your ability to understand all this, or we're just still getting there, right? Okay, so the answer to that question is, if you don't have a question right now, is not yet. Right? Not yet, yeah. Pretty much that's it. Not yet. No, I don't need to say that. I've already done it. Several times. Oh, wireless network scanning. That's a fun one. We're ready to wireless network scan. What do you think? How many people have a Android phone? Nobody has an Android phone? Everybody have an Apple? An iPhone? Christy? Eliza?
Yeah.
Ah, you have an iPhone? You people. You know, the right thing to have. Anyway. There are a couple, so this is like one of those other labs we did. Your antivirus is gonna think, oh, some of this stuff is bad. Well, it's not really bad software. The second.